most of the reason the gas price spiked 3 years ago was demand for oil increased. Then what happened was we had the terrible recession. A lot of businesses closed, a lot of folks were out of work, folks were driving fewer miles, so demand for oil goes down, prices went down. And by the way, oil prices are worldwide prices. So you don't just have like a US market for oil, you've got a world market for oil. Anything that happens anywhere in the world will lower the price. So now the economy's picking up, which is a good thing. More folks are finding jobs, businesses are starting to hire again, and that's happening all around the world. So now you're starting to see demand go back up, and the prices are going back up. You add on top of that what's happening in the Middle East, and it makes folks nervous, and so these folks start saying, you know what, I'm going to bid a higher price on oil, on a barrel of oil now, because I'm thinking it's going to go up a little further in case something happens on the world oil markets, and that pushes prices up just a little bit more. Now, there are a couple of things that we can do, but I'm just going to be honest with you. There's not much we can do next week or 2 weeks from now. What we can do is, for example, increase oil production here in the United States. So we are out there. Here's a little secret for you. We actually have seen higher oil production here in the United States than any time in our history. We are producing a lot of oil. It's just demand keeps on going up faster than production. But we can still do more. Now, we just had the Gulf crisis last summer when everything was messed up. And so what I had to do was I had to say, you know what, before we start drilling again out there, then I want you guys to show me proof that you can actually do this safely, and when something goes wrong, you can cap that thing so we're not going through 6 months of oil just spilling into the ocean and ruining coastal communities and, you know, hurting fishermen and so forth. We now have a situation where the safety rules have been improved and drilling is beginning again in that region, but the drilling that's taking place in the Gulf now, you know, that product doesn't get to market right away. We're also saying, you know, let's look in places like off the Atlantic or in Alaska. If there are other places where we can do some offshore drilling, we'll do it. But here's the thing about oil. We have about 2 to maybe 3% of the world's proven oil reserves. We use 25% of the world's oil. So think about it. Even if we doubled the amount of oil that we produced, we'd still be short by a factor of 5. So we can't just drill our way out of the problem. And that's why the second thing we can do is increase efficiency on cars and trucks, which is where most of our oil is used. Now, I noticed some folks clapped, but I know some of these big guys, they're all still driving their big SUVs. You know, they got their big monster trucks and everything. You're one of them? Well, now, here's my point. You know, if you're complaining about the price of gas and you're only getting 8 miles a gallon, you know, well, you may have a big family, but it's probably not that big. So, how many you have? 10 kids, you said? 10 kids? Well, you definitely need a hybrid van then. But here's the thing is that last year, for the first time in 30 years, we increased fuel efficiency standards on cars and trucks. And we didn't do it, by the way, with a law. We got auto workers, auto companies, environmentalists, everybody agreed to it. That's going to save us about 1.8 billion barrels of oil. But we can do more. The more efficient our auto fleets are, the more efficient our truck fleets are, the less people are using, that lowers gas prices as well. So that's the second thing we can do. The third thing we can do is we can start looking at electric cars and maybe natural gas cars so that we're not just using petroleum to power our vehicles. That would be, by the way, a huge boost for GMESA. If you've got a much better distribution network for electric cars, right now, some of these electrics, you should be able to just plug it into your garage. You basically just have a big socket. You plug it in at night, unplug it, you're driving it all day, you get home, you plug it back in, and if you've got one of these smart boxes in your garage, the unused electricity from your car actually goes back into your house. And so you're saving both ways. But the problem is right now that we don't have a broad enough distribution network. The cost of advanced batteries for cars is still a little bit too expensive. So we're trying to drive down the price. It's like anything else, though. It's the same with your wind turbine, same with wind energy. The more you make, the cheaper it gets because the technology improves, you're creating more of them, you get economies of scale. So, number one, increase oil production, but that's not a short-term solution, and it's not a long-term solution either. It'll help a little bit. Number two, more efficient cars, so we're using our gas more effectively. Number three, shifting to electric cars and other forms of transportation so we don't use oil as much. None of that's going to help you this week, though. So, like I said, if you're getting 8 miles a gallon, you may want to think about a trade-in. You can get a great deal. I promise you, GM or Ford or Chrysler, they're going to be happy to give you a deal on something that gets you better gas mileage.